So now we're going to put the information inside of the entity Blueman that we needed to create. Now the first thing we need to do is underneath package.net Minecraft.source and below this bit we need to put in import java.util.random. I'm not sure what this does, but there seems to be problems when you don't have that put in, so have that put in just so it definitely works. And then the second thing you need to put in is after public class entity Blueman, but before the first curly bracket, we need to put extends entity creature. And the reason we do that is saying that this entity Blueman is going to have the equalities of an entity creature, plus the things we put in obviously. An entity creature is the thing you extend to make a mob friendly. So there's entity creature for friendly mobs, there's entity monster I think it's called, or entity mob for hostile mobs, but that'll be in the next tutorial. And there's entity water creature for like squid, and then there's an entity animal which is basically the same as this except they can mate. So entity creature is friendly mobs that can't mate, and entity animal is friendly creatures that can mate. So that's the two basic things done. I've seen that there's been an error here, but basically that's an error because some basic thing we're not going to put in yet, as we put in obviously. So that error is going to be there for this part of the tutorial, but that will be gone after we've done a certain thing. But the first thing we need to do is write public entity Blueman, and then put brackets after it, and in the brackets put world, the first world having a capital B and the second not, and then put two curly brackets. And this is the constructor that's going to hold the texture and these tasks, the thing called tasks, which is like wandering about and panicking and stuff, but we'll come into that later. So yeah, we've got that defined on our entity Blueman. So the first thing we need to put in is super and then bracket and then world, lowercase 1, and then put colon afterwards. I'm not sure what that does, but it's needed, so that's the first thing you need to put in. What we need to put in is the texture, so we need to write all in lowercase texture and then equals and then speech marks and just close that with a semicolon. And inside the speech one we need to put the location of our texture in Minecraft.jar. Now mine's going to be called blueman.png, which can be directly inside Minecraft.jar if I was installing it, but I'll show you that texture at the end, and that's basically your texture defined. It's the move speed, so how fast it moves when it wanders about or it runs or something. So we need to put move and then speed with a capital S equals, and then we need to put a number, so 0.5f and then semicolon. And I believe that's like what most mobs have, so I'd leave it as 0.5f unless you want a proper speedy one, then put it to 1. But I truly say never put it above 1 because it'll be like a super fast mob that you would never be able to run away. So that's basically the speed of your mob. Now the next thing we need to do is add in our first task. Now this task is something that the entity naturally does, or does because it's been inflicted by, let's say, the player hitting it or something. But the first thing we're going to do is something that's natural and it does by itself, and that's wandering about. So we're going to, on a new line inside this bit here, we need to put tasks dot add task, and it's nicely giving us the template, but we're just going to take that out. And now we need to put, first we need to put is the number task. So if it's the first task you put in, you put a 0. If it's the second, we put a 1, third, 2, and so on. So it will just be in order. And then the next thing we need to do is put in what task it's going to be. Now these are like AIs and stuff, so I want the wandering one, so where it walks about. So we need to put new entity AI wander, and then for this you put brackets afterwards. We need to put two things. The first thing is what's going to do this. So if we put this, it means this or whatever it's inside, which is entity Blueman, will do this entity AI wander, which is wandering about. And the second thing is the speed. So obviously if you're wandering about, you move slower than when you're running or something. So we put this to a smaller speed than this, so 0.2f maybe. End it with semicolon, and that's your first task defined. The next task we're going to define is the panic one. So that's when the entity hits it, or you hit it. So like another hostile mob or another mob hits it, and you hit it, what it does, which it's panicking. So we're going to click enter, and we're going to copy and paste this. And then we're going to change the 0 to 1 because it's the next task. AI wander needs to be AI panic, that's what it's called. And then these things are coincidentally the same, so this, so what's doing it, and then the speed, and we're going to put that faster, so 0.38f, but we're not going to make it faster than the move speed. So that's your second task defined, which tells the entity to panic and how fast to do that when it's attacked. So now we're going to do the last task, which is something called Entity AI Watch Closest. So this is the thing where, you know, when you walk up to a sheep or something, and when you're so close to it, its head follows you. This is what the entity would do, and that's what a friendly mob should usually do. That's why we're including it. So we're going to copy and paste that thing again, changing the 1 to 2, changing new Entity AI Panic, changing the panic to Watch Closest, and then inside the brackets we need to put, the first thing is what's going to do it, so this. What's it going to follow is the next thing, so that's entity player. So this is entity player is basically the player, so you. And then the third thing is going to be the speed, so the speed the head moves. Now we're going to put that quite high. We're going to put that 6F. Oh, sorry, with entity player you need to put dot class afterwards. And we're going to put speed as 6F, and that's because you don't want the head to be really slow and not follow you much. If it's 6F, it will definitely follow you no matter what. So there won't be any glitches or anything until you obviously go quite far away, and then it'll start following you. But so that's basically our third task defined, and everything inside of public entity Blueman defined. So next we need to put in is something called is AI enabled. Now this I think is a method or constructor. I don't know. It might be a constructor or a method, I'm not sure. But basically this is the thing that gives the entity the new AI or not, and that new AI I think was from 1.2 or something, is the AI that you can mainly see it in hostile mobs, but that's when like it's daytime they hide in dark places, or if they're burning they jump into water. That's the new AI. So with friendly mobs I'm not sure what it does, but I think it does affect it. So if you want that you need to put public boolean, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and then is AI enabled, 2 brackets and some curly brackets. And now we need to say if it is enabled, then we need to put return, and I want it to be enabled, so true, semicolon. And that's basically the new AI attached to your mob. Now the next thing I'm going to put in is the thing that was causing the further occurring problem, and that is the max health. So we need to put in public int get max health, 2 curly brackets again, 2 normal brackets, sorry, and then curly brackets after. And then we need to return the max health of it, so I'm going to return 10 and then put semicolon. Now what 10 means is it's 5 full hearts, so like with the food tutorial, if you watch that one, when you were saying how many bars of hunger it filled, when you put 1 you actually meant half of the bar. So this still applies for the health, so if you want it to have 5 full hearts you put 10, if you want it to have 10 full hearts then put 20. But if you think you put above 20 it won't do anything, because the maximum any entity can have is 10 full hearts unless it's the Ender Dragon. So that's basically your max health constructor put in, and the error that was occurring until now completely gone. Now the next thing we're going to put in is the code that tells the entity what sounds it will have. So the first sound we're going to give is the living sound, so the sound it makes when nothing's bothering it, it's just walking about. So we're going to write protected string with capital S get living sound, sorry, 2 curly brackets and normal brackets and then curly brackets, and then we need to return what the living sound will be. And I've copied this from the file you saw at the start, which is mob.cal. So for some reason there's some code in the whole game files that tells again that mob.cal needs to look inside of resources and find mob, the folder mob, and then the cal volume. So if you want your own sounds, I think you need to find that on YouTube, because I'm not actually entirely sure about that. But basically that's the living sound of your entity done, and we've given it a cow sound. Now I've just copy and pasted this 3 times and changed the living to hurt for the 2nd time and death for the 3rd time, and coincidentally the sound for the cow getting hurt and dying is the same, which is mob.cow hurt. So that's the 3 main and I think the only sounds defined on our entity Blueman. So the penultimate thing we need to put in is the item this entity drops. So what we need to put in is protected int get drop item ID, 2 normal brackets and then curly brackets after. Then we need to put return and return the item or block. So funny enough, even though it says item, you can put but block. We want it to drop, so I'm going to do item, so item dot diamond, and after we need to put shifted index. If you did a block, and semicolon. If you did a block, you need to put block dot and then your block name, and then dot block ID. But that's basically the item that it drops defined. And the thing about this is that sometimes you can drop 0, sometimes you drop 1 or 2. So that's the thing about this, is random drops. Last thing we need to put in this entity blue man class is if it can despawn, and we need to put no, because it's a friendly mob. So this is where you set the difficulty to peaceful. All the hostile mobs disappear, but the friendly mobs stay, and that's what we want this to do. So what we need to put in is protected boolean can despawn, normal brackets, and then curly brackets, and then we need to return false. So it's just saying that no, it cannot despawn. And that's basically our entity blue man class completely finished.